Now, it's Wednesday the 5th of July and my name is George Finglas. I'm moderator and I'm interviewing Gerry Quinn, a member of Priorswood and Didtrict Mencha, the founder member there from the very start. And we have a new system here where we're going to go through a little story. Gerry, it's very much Gerry's story. So Gerry, I'll ask you to kick off and we'll go with the early years in your own words and take your time, no problem.
Hi, Gerry Quinn here. I was born in 1933, one of 6 children. I was born in the Old Coombe, christened in St. Francis Street, and lived in Liberty for the first couple of years of my life. We then moved to Kimmage in the war years. In 1942, the 17th of May, Sunday, my dad went to 8:30 Mass, took bad, and was left lying in the porch till they could get his ambulance. A neighbour called my mother, got to go to them, and said, Mr. Quinn's gone off in the ambulance. Nobody was surprised because at that time every able-bodied man had to be in something. A fireman, an auxiliary nurse, air raid precaution, a local defence force, so that nobody was surprised. As a member of St. John's, he went off. 1 o'clock that day the policeman came to tell us that he had died and was in the Meath Hospital. Then the government took over. My poor mother got to go to wasn't in good health. At the time the doctor suggested she start smoking to help calm her. And in 1978 she died of emphysema.
From smoking. Gerry, just to keep it in context, your family and where you were placed, how many was in your family? You said it was 6.
There was 6. 1 girl, Joe, me, John, Noel, Vin, 5 boys.
So, were you
I was in the middle somewhere.
In the middle?
Yeah.
Okay, right, that's good. And you lived, you said, the Liberties, and you moved to Crumlin.
170 in Stanaway Road.
Brilliant. So, take it from there. Where did you go after there, or what was life like around there?
Well,
it was very much the country
I was only 8 going on 9, so life was all right for me. I was more amazed that the people were nice to me, gave me biscuits and all the rest. I didn't visualise my father gone.
Right.
But a fat gentleman from the government visited the house and went off. And my late sister, God be good to you, said to me, if you don't behave yourself, you won't be going on holidays. I couldn't wait to go. It transpired, I wound up in the court with my mother, God be good to her. McCarthy, the justice, signed the paper. A policeman took me, put me on the 42 bus and brought me out to R10. I was 7 years there. At the time they were changing. The lads before that were accused of huge crimes, mitching, playing football, scutting, gambling, international crimes. And they were trying to convert it to bring orphans in. So we were one of the few orphans to start. The 42 I was there, left at 49. I don't have a lot of far from happiness about R10, but one good thing I try to be smart about is that I got an apprenticeship from them. I was sent out to a man who apprenticed me. My own apprenticeship, God help me, I was a charity case because they knew I came from R10. And the brother used to come regularly and say, are you saying your prayers? Are you being pure? In front of everybody. In front of everybody. And
society
I had to eat on my own. It was a small workshop, a beautiful place to save your time. I didn't appreciate it then, but looking back, I had experience of cabinet making, joinery, carpentry, repairs to antique furniture, house repairs.
So to keep it in context, Gerry, and this is where this little thing, and it'll be the same for everybody. Just go back to the education part of it. So in other words, you were schooled very much between.
We had school 3 times a day. The last lesson was half.
This is in our time.
Yeah, at 7:30 at night. Very strong on religion, very strong on Irish and very strong on national pride in the independence, the lads that fought that side. And
so they actually taught. Are you telling me that they actually educated and taught a form of politics? In the sense of,
all the brothers were country, and they had.
We were coming from the Civil War, isn't that right?
Yeah, at the time they would have been related to Dan Breen and a few others.
But so were they pro-treaty?
Well, I wouldn't know then, to be honest.
No, well, when you think about
brave men and all the rest.
Yes,
you know?
yeah.
They
were martyrs as such that they were teaching us about. Yeah,
I had one man from Kerry, a big fat gentleman. And I was good.
Well said.
I was good at compositions. I'm not being proud. I was honest.
Yeah.
They used to get my story and pass around the brothers and break the heart laughing at it. I read a lot, and if I came across a good expression, I remembered it and put it in my book. Now, Murphy from Kerry, a huge man, leaned across you, and he'd be examining your papers, and he'd have his knuckles. Musculos a hun, musculos a hun. Wake up out of your sleep. And you're waiting all the time. You can't even listen to him. He beat me for using a Dublin slang. Kerry man.
Yeah.
And the word I used was slovenly. Now that's untidy, messy. You know, it's not a word that's often used, but it means untidy.
Yeah.
So I was in the corner feeling very sorry for myself, and another brother came along and said, well, what did you do? My brother Murphy slapped me. They don't beat you, they slap you. What you do? He said I used a Dublin slang. What was the word? Slovenly. But this was a Cork man. A decent man, wasn't a few there. What you have to remember, he said, is that English is Brother Murphy's second language. He was a Gaelic horse, and he's teaching me English.
That's the sad part of it, and that's why I love this record, what you're saying, in the sense of, it tells what people of your era, and not only you, other people that were around in those days. As I said, and I'll finish after this and go straight back to Gerry, like when I was in school, because I was left-handed, I was branded the child of the devil, Kidtog, and I was beaten for it. But that was years after, but I can only imagine. So we're back to you, Gerry, just to keep us on track. We've fairly covered the education, and in your case, it's sad enough in the sense of where it was, and it was very much forced. So your employment, your first job.
My first job as an apprentice, I was sent from the school to this small joinery shop. I don't know what he asked me, I don't know what I said. I went back, and a week later, on the Thursday night, I was told, get your things together, you're working in the morning. And I went home to my mother, God be good, at 11 o'clock at night, and she nearly died. She thought I'd run away. So I started my apprenticeship, as proud as punch, 9 o'clock in the morning, with my letter, and I handed it to him, and he read, and he says, you know, we start here at 8:30.
My God, it's slap already.
Yeah.
And what was your first week's wages? Can you remember?
£1, 2 and 6.
Sorry, £1, 2?
£1, 2 and 6.
Right.
I gave the pound to my mother because there was no money.
Now, you mentioned, just to put it in context again, you mentioned you were in R10, you started a job. Did that mean when you started the job you moved back home?
Oh yes.
So
that night, yes.
So in other words, that was a sort of a release clause because you're out now an earner, so you can go back to the family home.
When I say move back to the family, we hadn't bonded. Although the 4 brothers were in R10, we were in different places, different classes, different refectory, different dormitory, different playground. So we never met, you know. And with the result, we don't bond like other. My heart goes out to girls who say, I'm going to visit me ma, or I'm bringing me dad out for a pint. You miss all that, you know. And but to get back to the brothers, they were totally unsuited to what they were doing. They left Baldoyle at 18, came to us, the older brother got them and said, get them down and keep them down. And I had famous expressions like, you broke your mother's heart, but you won't break mine.
This oppression.
And there was one priest, one brother always said to us at night time, during the war years, don't forget to say your prayers. The Germans might think this is a barracks and bomb it. That's how much thought or understanding they had of teenagers.
We got your
The fist was all they knew.
We got your first job, and
Yes.
your first wage. And as you said, you would give your man the pound, and you had the odds as such for your bus fare or whatever, and your pocket money, I suppose. What other jobs? What was your next job?
I went to Dining and Dowdall's of Cabra, what road beside Bachelor's, and I couldn't get over the difference.
Foster Avenue.
I couldn't get over the difference. It was a big place. Tractors brought the job here, bench, that people sweeping up, people wetting your tea. Me in the little place, I had to charge in the morning in there, light the pipe, the belly stove, put the glue on, have it ready, put her on the benches, get on the bike and literally piss off the Bolton Street. And lucky enough, Murray the teacher was understanding. He told me off for being late, and then I told him why. He said, all right, because they wouldn't release me in the job. They wanted everything done before I left.
Gerry, there's just one word you used there, and I'd like to correct. It's not correct, and I'd like to explain it because it's the old English, and I just know that future generations would know it. You said wetting the tea. The wetting the tea is so important in the sense that that's if you pour water, that's how it was made at the time, and it's really just to explain for future generations that what wetting the tea means, you know.
There's a stool there.
Oh yeah. So sorry, just moving on then. Where am I? We're down. We got the education. We're down to your first job. Now, here's a good one, Gerry. Your influences. Who influenced you? Who did you look up to at the time? This could be anybody on earth.
I admired the cabinet maker that worked. He was a brilliant man, and he was an artist more than a tradesman. He actually made the inlaid. You could buy the stuff, put it down, glue it, but we actually made it. I had to help him make all the designs, the salt
Brilliant.
and pepper, and all the rest.
Super.
You know. And I've always admired him. And sadly, I was working in James's Street in an antique shop, repairing the building. And I went across to the Toby Jug to phone the job. And who was sitting there only? Gerry Brennan, the cabinet maker. And he had retired. And I couldn't stay there. If I'd have been caught in the pub instead of work, I'd have been sacked.
Yeah.
So I just said goodbye to him. But to this day I regret not having time and to tell him how much I admired him.
Absolutely.
You know, I admired him more than the carpenter, believe it or not.
It's a lovely story.
He was an artist, you know.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
you certainly brought it out. Now, the next thing I'll ask is just to put a thing, because it's different people form different ways in the sense of, what was your hobbies?
What was?
Your hobbies.
I had no hobbies when I left the school. I had no money in my pocket. I bought a bike from Hannon to Stephen's Green at 2 and 6 a week, and I cycled everywhere. Didn't cost me anything. On the Sunday I'd go in on the bike and I'd get lost. And I wound up at this place one Sunday evening, and I stopped the man and I said, I beg your pardon, could you tell me where I am? He said, you're in Inchicore. I hadn't a clue, you know. I was the boy ball. I didn't know where anything was, you know.
The next question, and it's not to do with hobbies, but in the sense, so we can take it in your case, it was certainly bicycles. But I saw a photograph of yourself and your wife, I think before you got married, in an black and white. It's absolutely brilliant on a motorbike.
Oh yes,
Absolute
yes.
classic, and it's a real James Dean one. I mean that. And actually, we'll certainly get it. And when we're doing this presentation, with Gerry's permission again, if we're sharing it, I'd love the likes of that photograph. But the big thing is in the sense of, it looks like because of bikes you went down to the likes of motorbikes when you met Glow and started a family. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was no use meeting girls I didn't just get tongue-tied, I just didn't know what to say to them. They were a different species. I'd be cycling home and girls from the local factory would be beside me and say, Mary wants to know, will you go out? You know, all right, so you told me. And off they went. And years later, said, what sort of a thick was it? But I know
It's not, it's
no social
skills as such, yeah.
They eventually married the beauty.
Absolutely, you did indeed.
Now, I met a friend, I joined the Lees and the Mary, and that was my saving grace, believe it or not, because a lot of the lads went on the streets as rent boys. Some became soldiers because they were institutionalised. Some came back to the school because they couldn't hack it, and they were totally ostracised. Their head was shaved, they were made wear their own clothes, they had to eat on their own, nobody could play with them, they had to sit apart in the school, and that was their understanding of an emotion. You know.
Oh my God! See, this is the record that people.
So that was the saving of it.
That's so tragic.
I knocked around with a chap then, Harry Compton. He's dead too. Got to go to him, and he loved dancing. I didn't. I couldn't. I had 3 feet. I didn't have 2 left feet. I couldn't move. You know.
Yeah.
And he said, "I'm going to the Olympia tonight. Will you come?" I said, "Okay, something to do." And when we were there, he says, "There's people over here who want to talk to, come on over." And there were 3 girls talking, and Harry stepped in and introduced us, and who was in the 3 only Glow, my wife. We walked all the way home together to Hardest Cross. We didn't even feel the distance. And it was after that
That was love at first sight, then, definitely.
She was a marvellous girl. She put up an awful lot from me, because I was like a bag of rusty nails. Somebody said something crossed me. I was ready to put my fists up to protect myself, because that's what I learned in the school, you know. And I had to, took it slow. And I nearly ruined her, I have to tell you, with my attitude. Yeah. But she was very understanding, God help her, you know. And
she must have fancied you anyway.
Sorry?
She must have fancied you anyway.
Well, we're 65 years married, so it must have worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. Gerry,
You've done something right.
Yeah, I think that's a great description, that a bag of rusty nails.
And Gerry, I'm going to finish off here because it's been absolutely brilliant. Actually, your nickname.
I had a nickname in school. I wasn't mad about it. I was small but fast and good at playing games on the parade. And we played a lot of tip and tea, you know, the thing hide. And because they couldn't catch me, they called me Mousy.
Right.
And I don't want to be called Mousy.
No, but when you think about it, like the way things have moved on, like and this is one of my favourites, because when people say, like, man, I'm George Finglas, so everybody that I know is Finglas, they're all Fingo, and that's their nickname, and that was certainly ours. But I would have thought yours was Quinner, or and it's only in latter days, and we actually used to hear it in the shed, and we done the birthdays and fries for you and things like that. The Mighty Quinn, you know, so things like that. Gerry, do you know what your story? There was just one other thing you had said, and I remember the last one, and I liked it because it's more of a compliment. You mentioned about your mother and how society treated her, and what the job that she had. If you just to finish off on that, so people will know what.
As far as I know, there was no money for widows in the war years. They had a choice. The government gave them a choice. They could work as a cleaner in the government, or they could go to Baldbridge to early sweeps. They decided to make my mother a cleaner in the government. There was 2 of us in our town. 2 of my younger brothers, who were twins, were down in Drogheda with the nuns. And my other younger brother too, who was left at home with my sister, he had, I suspect, polio. and he was out in Clontarf, didn't know what was wrong with him. Now, she had to visit us, Drogheda, Clontarf, hold down a job. She had to leave in the morning at 4:30 to walk into the government to light a fire for some fat arse. I know I shouldn't say it.
And you should.
I'm being
Absolutely, you're mild, I know that.
And then she had to get back home again. And then she had to work. And all we done was put our hand out for sweets. We weren't aware of the
And at the time, when the family were split up, the oldest, which was your sister, and the youngest stayed with your mum.
Anna, she's dead, God be good to her. She was 12, Vin was 2. So Anna was left with my mother to look after Vin too. And then the 2 lads, the twins, they were in Drogheda for 5 years. I was lucky, I read a lot and I seemed to survive the gentleman, you know. I got plenty of beating for no reason at all. I can't remember half the reasons why I was beaten. A pet story they had was, come to me tonight in the boot room. Now, there was 5 dormitories, 180 children in each room. A big room at the back with pigeonholes, and you put your boots in there every night and pick them up next morning. Come to me tonight. Murphy, we called him Lollipop, because if you gave him sweets, he was in good humour. He used a broken hurley on my hands, and after a while they got so numb, I couldn't feel anything. And then when I got to bed, I couldn't get my clothes off, I couldn't feel anything. And Eamon Buckley, my pal, hopped out of bed, come over to help me, he says, I'll help you. He said, no, he says, when you get into bed, he says, put your hands each side of the pillow. Because, he said, when the life comes back, he said, you'll scream at the pain. But in the meantime, I fell fast asleep, so next morning, my hands were sore, but nothing serious. But that was normal, like that was nothing unusual. I was just one of a couple of hundred who would have got that, you know. Part of the course, as they say.
Yeah.
In today's terms, that guy would be jailed for that cruelty.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
They were totally unsuited.
Yeah.
They were worse. They were more in prison than we were. Because when we were playing, they had to mind us. When we were in school, they had to teach us. When we were in the refectory, they had to move among us.
The reason why I mentioned Gerry's mother, just to try to point out that society, as if it wasn't bad enough in the sense that his father was taken at such a young age, but the point is that there was no help for widows. But even Gerry was saying in parts that parts of the family looked down on her because she was a widow, no other reason. Because, and you mentioned before, I remember you saying about people saying, oh,
yeah,
her husband's gone, she's having a good time.
She got rid of her family to have a good time.
You know, so if you can understand the pain. So what I'm saying, like, as far as I'm concerned, this is dedicated to Gerry's mother. I know she's long gone, but the point about it is, to me, she's an absolute hero. Catherine Doyle, isn't it? Yeah. So I remember you saying, I'll never forget it, Gerry, because in the sense of, I'm not religious, but I do send light to people, and I'm sending light to your mother now. Listen, lads, I think we'll finish off now, and I think that deserves a round of applause.